Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, you can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Please help us grow by subscribing or sharing the Newsa-Cast with friends, or follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. Now, let's get this show on the road. And I can put my chair out at noon and just leave it, just like the good old days.
As long as you sit in it. I know Toshner used to drive down there at like 5:30 in the morning and put his chairs out.
Absolutely. Otis, Gap.
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, welcome to episode 20 of the Newsa-Cast. We're out of the teenage years and into the 20s, and you know we keep growing, keep plugging along, and we have a very, very fun episode this week, Joe.
Tosh, 20. I cannot believe that we've reached 20. I'm super excited for that. And what better way to celebrate, right, than let's talk parades.
Absolutely. Some of the biggest parades in the state, for sure, and also the Midwest, right here in Appleton, Wisconsin.
No doubt. And two of the best people, two of the guys that run the parade, Otis, Eric Stadler, we had a chance to sit down and understand how parades came about in Appleton. You know, Tosh, you and I talk about all the time how great this area is. I mean, how lucky we are to have the fantastic parks, the amenities that we have. Well, we have literally world-class parades. I mean, the Christmas parade, when this is released, it's actually the Thursday before the Christmas parade. To me, that's the kickoff of the holiday season, right?
Absolutely.
The avenue's lit up. I mean, where Santa Claus is there. It's festive. That's the start of the holiday season. But that nighttime parade is it's either the largest or certainly one of the largest nighttime holiday parades in the Midwest, and that's pretty darn cool. I love that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, it is an amazing event when you're talking about, 70,000 people on the Ave, coming from communities all around Northeast Wisconsin to come and watch a parade. That's a lot of fun. So we get to get a little inside look at that and kind of see how it comes together and what they have to do to prepare for all three of their parades.
Absolutely. And Flag Day parade too, man. Legit parade, right, Tosh?
It's a long parade. Absolutely.
A long, hot parade.
Yeah, it usually is. Absolutely is.
That parade's a long time from now, Tosh, but how was your week since last week? We had a great episode last week. Thanks first of all to all our listeners. We had a great week of download, our highest ever. So first off, thank you very much for that. We hope you like the show. We hope you're back again. And Tosh, how was your week?
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't bad. Lots of interesting stuff happening in the world of sports. I think the biggest is Craig Counsell leaving the Brewers to go to the arch rival Cubs. That was a little bit of a shock being a baseball guy. I wasn't ready for that one. I thought he was going to the Mets. But
boy, Tosh, I absolutely did too. I was absolutely shocked too, just flabbergasted. I don't know if we're ever going to get the whole story of what happened. It was certainly a head scratcher of a move.
I think you kind of get it to the point. I mean, one of the big things that he was looking for was to try to bring a little bit of recognition to managers in baseball. And, some of the lowest paid managers in all the sports, NHL and MLB are two of the lowest paid managers. I mean, you're looking at Bill Belichick making $20 million a year. You're looking at NBA managers making in the teens for sure. So he's now the highest paid in history, not only per year, but for his entire contract. So maybe they'll bump up some of these guys. I mean, those managers, that's a long baseball season, starting in spring. And this is just starting in spring training and going all the way through the World Series, but everything else that they do as well, that's a long season. So I like Craig Counsell. He's that baseball brain, and happy for him. I don't want him to do too well because I'm not a Cubs fan.
Yes.
But I hope he does well.
I feel the same way. I mean, the Brewers were fortunate to have him. he's always going to be a Brewer. You know, he's a Wisconsin guy, and
Yeah.
you can't argue whatever his reasons are. I'm sure they were well thought out in his head, and in the end, that's really all that matters. So we'll see what happens. The NL Central will be a race to the end, I hope, between the Brewers and the Cubs.
And then, I mean, talking high school football, we just got done with level 4, moving on to the state championship this week. And not all of our local teams. There was one team, at least one team in every division from Northeast Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
You know, we've up in this area, we have dominated football in the state, and you're going up against teams from Madison and Milwaukee and the western suburbs of Milwaukee. Yeah. And you and I have said it, you certainly have said it really since day one, that somebody needs to beat Kimberly to prove that you know, Kimberly isn't the best. And that finally happened in a level 4. It's a tough game against Milwaukee Marquette. I feel like every single game for Kimberly has been 14-7 the last few weeks, and they were on the short end of this one, and it was a heck of a run for them. And I'm sure they're going to reload and be right back there again next year. It
will, but you know, we do have to talk about 2 teams that are making on in our Northeast Wisconsin, and that's Wrightstown moving on in Wrightstown Division 4, and then Lux Casco in Division 5.
Yes.
Both come from the same conference. But play at different levels when it comes to the state playoffs. That's the same conference that FVL came out of. I think that conference had maybe 4 or 5 teams in the playoffs as well. So it's a good conference for sure.
Oh, it is. That's a powerhouse conference. I've always enjoyed working that conference as an official. They're usually always good games, great crowds. They play good smash mouth, hard mouth football. Their defense is tough. They'll hit you. Some of the hardest hitting games I've had this year have been the Wrightstown games. So yeah, they're going to be, they play, they have Thursday game at, I think it's at 4 or 5 o'clock at Camp Randall, this Thursday. Yep. So yeah, good luck to those teams. Again, Luxembourg Casco, same thing, built just like Wrightstown. They're tough teams, and any given year, those teams will compete for state titles for sure. So yeah, we wish those teams luck.
Yeah. And anything else, Joe, going on in your life?
Well, Tosh, I have one exciting thing. I caught Dark Star Orchestra on Thursday night at Poplar Hall. Man, it was nice. I ended up going with some people from work, and man, it was a great show. I had never seen those guys before. For those of you that don't know, Dark Star Orchestra is basically a cover band of the Grateful Dead. They pick a night in Grateful Dead history, and they play that entire set. So we got a show from 50 years ago from Winterland, and would have been 1973, I guess. But the musicians are amazing. The guy that's the Bobby character, his voice, his mannerisms, guitar playing on stage, almost identical to Bobby. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And the Jerry Garcia part, a lot of similarities. Their voices are very, very similar. It was a really, really good show. But more than anything, I've got to shout out Poplar Hall. You and I went to see Keller Williams, the last year. Mm-hmm. And we commented at that time that the sound was really good. And I had that in mind when I went to this show. And damn, that sound is so, so good in that venue. So I really have got to give a shout out, a thumbs up to Poplar Hall. They did it right when they designed that. It's a really, really cool venue to see a show, and the bands that are coming to Appleton and playing in that venue, it's pretty darn cool. Keller Williams, Dark Star, those are usually a little bit bigger venues. In fact, Dark Star even mentioned it was their first time ever in Appleton. So, hey,
I think a lot of that has to do with the Mile of Music.
Yeah.
I mean, without Mile of Music, we don't have the music scene that we do here in the Fox Valley. So, I mean, these bands that are bigger bands that usually hit Madison's and Milwaukee's are hitting Appleton because they know about the Mile of Music. That's a huge piece for sure.
Absolutely. And some of the bars, it's really cool to see, like the Appleton Beer Factory. They always have shows down there. In fact, the band you and I saw at Mile Work had their album release party this past weekend, and I'm sure that was a great show. I didn't get a chance to go to that, but that you're right. McFleischman's, they all have outdoor shows all throughout the throughout the spring, whenever the weather's nice. I mean, the Fox River House, even just a couple of weeks ago, had an outdoor show. I think even the first weekend of November. That's nuts, and that's awesome. Yeah. So it's this town, as much as we love sports, and we love sports in the Newsa-Cast, we love the music and art scene just as much, and it's thriving in this area, and that's really, really cool to see, and I love that about this area.
That's what makes this area one of the best places to live, for sure.
The Newsa-Cast is just that cherry on top, right, Tosh?
We hope so. Yeah, we hope so, and we hope you keep listening. Go to your wherever you get your podcasts, check out the socials. And pass, what we really appreciate is word of mouth. Let people know about this podcast, and you're going to learn some stuff, and you're going to hear from some interesting people as well.
Absolutely.
Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, it is time to take that old look at new. That little spot where we take a look at history. Whether it's Wisconsin, the nation, the world, and we try to bring it back here to you, the listener, and give you a little bit of history for some knowledge of what's happening. So, Joe, what do you got this week?
Well, Tosh, since this episode is all about parades, and next Tuesday is the Christmas parade, and one of the special things about the Christmas parade is not only is it at night, but it's lit up by the Avenue of Angels. So I thought, let's take a little closer look at just what are those angels. And they've been a part of my life forever. They really do bring out the Christian. I think College Avenue just kind of turns magical, I think, that time of year, a little Disney-esque with those lights. They were first brought to College Avenue in 1960. They made their debut. And I don't know if you remember, Tosh, that set of angels lasted through 1978, and certainly in 1978, all the department stores were down there. Prangies had the windows. Remember those window cases, filled with like Santa's Toyland or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those angels back then, I don't know what they were exactly made out of, but I always remember them just looking like porcelain. They were definitely different than what they were now. Yeah. Arguably a lot better back then, but that was a long time ago. In 1978, they were replaced with larger kind of candle decorations, and those made it for a while. And finally, when it got to the 1990s, they really were in shambles. And fortunately, they found somebody that actually fell in love with those was Frances Bernstein. And she was a lady that before she passed, in 2003, she approached ADI, which now owns the decorations, and said, "You know what? I want to support the renovation of the Angels. I want to make sure this Appleton tradition stays alive." After her passing in 2012, her daughter Penny kept her wishes. So that family has been the ones that have supported and allowed the new LED lamps to be put into them. So those angels right now that you see downtown, thank you to a wonderful gift by Bernstein and her family for keeping that alive. They're the ones that they keep it going. Now, I know ADI definitely still needs support. There are a lot of angels. In fact, there's 38 poles that have angels at 8 intersections. So that's a lot of angels. That's a lot of lights. So they always need help. And you know what? If you like that tradition, maybe consider talking to the fine folks at ADI and helping them out. How about you, Tosh? What are you looking at?
I'm going back to 1924, and I'm going to stay on the subject of parades. But 1924, there's a certain store in New York, a flagship store that expanded to an entire city block. And that store was Macy's. Yeah. And to showcase the biggest store in the world, as they called it in 1924, they decided to throw a parade on Thanksgiving morning. Now, at that time, it wasn't a Thanksgiving Day parade, but it was a Christmas parade. But they did that back in 1924. But there are other department stores. Gimbel's ran a Thanksgiving parade in 1920. So there's a history of Thanksgiving Day's parades. And, obviously the biggest one you watch on TV, and I still flip it on just to see what's going on, is that Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. on Thanksgiving morning, but 1924 was the first one.
Man, I love parades, and I'm the same way as well. Every Thanksgiving morning, nothing, maybe it's just background, but the parade is always on. It's just kind of tradition. You have to have it on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're waiting for one of those inflatables to just go.
Never happens. Never happens.
Hopefully not.
Well, that's our old look at new.
It's not a NASCAR.
Right. Well, that's our old look at new. We hope you enjoyed it.
Well, Newsa-Cast listeners, you have a treat for our interview this week. We're going to take a look at the Appleton Parades. And we have two people who are heavily involved, Corey Otis and Eric Stadler. They've been doing it for a lot of years. In fact, you're going to find out that it's kind of a generational thing. But fantastic interview. Learned more about what really goes into the parades than I ever knew did.
Absolutely, Tosh. And there's a lot that goes into them. And it was a fantastic interview. Like you said, I learned a lot. It's been a great tradition in Appleton. We mentioned it in the opening. It's one of the great things that makes this community what it is.
Yeah, so grab a chair, put it down on the Ave at 5:30 in the morning, and bundle up and listen to this interview.
Yeah, there you go. What else are you going to do for the 3 hours that you're sitting there in your chair?
Exactly.
Tosh, I am excited. This has been a part of my life, literally my whole entire life. I went to a parade with my parents forever, brought my kids to parades, met up with you, Tosh, at parades, waved at Otis at parades. They have been a part of Appleton, and Appleton just seems to do parades right. And we have the pleasure of learning how that is done, understanding how that's done. Tosh, I know you work with Corey. I'll let you do the introductions, Tosh. You guys are tight. Yep. But man, I'm excited for this. This is going to be exciting, learning about what makes Appleton Parades go.
Yeah, if you've grown up in this area, you've probably been a part of this. And we have Corey Otis and Eric Stadler, who are both involved with the parades right now. And I think the coolest thing that we're going to help bring you, the listener, is a little bit what goes into this and how everything works. So it's not just standing on the cold College Avenue and drinking hot chocolate, maybe spiked with something. There's a lot more that goes into it. And so thank you guys for joining us tonight.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us, gentlemen.
And I can put my chair out at noon and just leave it, right? Throw the chair out and just leave it, just like the good old days.
As long as you sit in it. The city passed an ordinance a few years ago that said if you put your stuff out, it has to be after 12 and you got to stay with it. And that happened after a big windstorm came down the avenue. People put their stuff out. I know Toshner used to drive down there at like 5:30 in the morning and put his chairs out.
Absolutely.
The windstorm blew everything east down the avenue, and it caused a big mess. So they put this ordinance in place. But a few very wise people have found a way around it. They put their chairs and blankets in front of drinking establishments, and then they keep an eye on their stuff from the front window sitting on a bar stool. So there are a few places if you walk down in the early afternoon, you'll see the windows are full.
I remember driving down College Avenue. I used to live over by Appleton West on my way to East. And I would pull off to the side, find a spot, dump my chairs and my blankets, and then just take off and go to work. It was a beautiful system.
And it worked for a while.
It did work for a while. Absolutely. Let's learn a little bit about both of you. You're both from the area. Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about, your history here in the Fox Valley?
Well, I'm a lifelong resident. I grew up going to Franklin Elementary and then Rosie Tech and junior high, and then Appleton West 89 grad. So I've been here and love Appleton. It's in my blood, and I don't see leaving. Maybe in another 6-8 years when I'm close to retirement and move to Florida for a month or something like that. But I still would be anxious to get back. So, and I've been on the parade committee for probably as many years as Corey. Maybe 1 year prior, it might have been officially that I got on the committee. But Corey's been a part of the parade since he was getting burped by his mom, and she was watching the parade, probably judging floats for her in-laws who were in charge of the parade at the time. But I've started on the parade committee, the Appleton Parade Committee, as a volunteer with helping all the military units in the Memorial Day and Flag Day parades, and then kind of morphed into helping with Christmas as well. And where we are today, helping Corey as an assistant chair along with his sister, who I think sometimes we refer to Megan as our secretary, or the kind of like the eggs that keep all the meatloaf together. But she's just as equal as far as I'm concerned as an assistant chair as Corey and I. She does a heck of a great job and keeping us on our toes and remembering stuff that we forget. So
You just called my sister an egg?
No comment any further than that. I'll leave well enough alone.
Yeah.
Eric, I love that, especially from the fact just being an Appleton resident. It's just what a great way to just morph yourself into the community and just have a special like I said in the introduction, everybody knows what it's a part of their life, right? You look for that Tuesday before Thanksgiving, you just know that's to me, that's the kickoff to the holiday. That's when things get started, and can only imagine the amount of planning, and we'll get into that. But it's great that you just do it year after year. It's unbelievable the amount of time that you must put into it. Stories are, like that. People need to realize that. So I certainly appreciate that.
I think most people do that come to the parades. They understand that it's not something that just unfolds and happens. And by the applause that we hear when we go through the parade, and the smiles and just the intense amount of people that are down there, not just for the Christmas parade, but Flag Day and Memorial Day too. I mean, we're getting 50 to 75,000 people at all three parades, if not more. And then 100,000 viewers on WFRV for the Flag Day Parade and the Christmas Parade. I mean, that's huge. And you said it at the beginning, Appleton must be doing something right with parades. I mean, we regularly get calls from other communities asking, hey, how do you guys do this? Or, kind of sharing stories and whatnot, and asking, because they know that we kind of got our stuff together. And Corey's grandpa was one of those that helped start everything. I mean, and his dad after that. And so it's kind of a family affair in the Otis side of things. But yeah, it is. And I think we all have a feeling of being on the committee, and it's kind of our duty, or it's what we give back to the community. I think we get as much out of it as we put into it. Sometimes I feel like I get more out of it than I put into it. So
great things happen when you get those kind of feelings. Corey, I can only imagine what your upbringing is. I mean, you growing up with a parade, it's a part of your life, I'm sure, in your family's life. What was growing up, but it like that, being wrapped around these three events every single year?
Well, I think like anybody else, when the way you grow up, you just think it's normal. You think that everybody else has the same kind of upbringing too. So I always joke and I tell people I've never missed an Appleton parade, but I've never actually seen one either. I've always been in the back wings. And even when I was a little kid, I was at the end of the parade route. And at that time, we had a lot of magnetic signs for different dignitaries. And my job as like a 5 or 6 year old was to run into the street and pull off those signs as I got to the end of the route. And I just thought, well, everybody's got jobs like this, The Elks started the Flag Day Parade, and it kind of got too big for them to run. So the city took it over, and that's when my grandpa got involved, Bud Otis, and people who are on the committee and serve with him will tell you that he raised the standard for the Appleton parades, and he wanted to make sure that it was about the flag, or it was about honoring the fallen for Memorial Day, or it was about the holiday season for Christmas, that it wasn't a commercial endeavor. It wasn't a chance to put your sign on the side of a truck or a float and just try to get people into the door of your business. It was about the purpose of the parade. And he raised the standard not only for the participants, but also for the committee and everybody involved as well. So he really set the standard for all of us. My dad took over in the mid 1980s. I think it was 86. And he had to make it his own too. So my dad really kind of innovated the way we watched the parade. He started the partnership along with Harvey Sampson, who's an integral part of the parade history in Appleton. And we just lost Harvey a couple of years ago. They brought in WFRV, who has been our broadcast partner for over 30 years now.
Wow.
And Eric talked about 100,000 people watching it on TV or online. We asked a couple of years ago, like, if you were going to tell us the ratings, what would they be? And the general manager said that we basically pull in an NFL audience as long as that NFL game doesn't involve Green Bay. So basically, any other team that's on a primetime network game, we get about the same ratings for the downtown Appleton Christmas parade. So it's turned into a huge thing. Obviously, it's a sense of pride, and not only my family, but Eric's family, the Kaufmans, the Thompsons. We've got a lot of second and third generation people on our committee, and we've brought in a lot of new people over the years too. So it's definitely a team effort. We work very closely with the city, the Appleton Police Department, WHBY helps us out, WFRV, like I mentioned, and a lot of other businesses will come together and contribute here and there to really make it a community event.
So going back to the history of it, how big, you said the Elks, it got too big for them. In comparison, how big was the parade then, and how has it grown?
The Flag Day Parade, I think it started off with about 50 units or so, but I did a little bit of research this summer. I got into a newspaper archive website trying to find some information actually about my grandfather, and I started digging into some Flag Day articles from the 70s. And at one point, I think it was the bicentennial year, there were 140 floats in the Flag Day Parade. Right now, we average about 100 to 110. And that's a long parade. That's about 2 hours as a spectator to sit and watch the first float to the last float. So I can't imagine 140 floats.
Wow.
And the kind of entries that they brought in. Christmas, we have a time limit because it's broadcast live. So we have about 90 minutes that we have to get our parade in past the cameras at WFRV. So that does make us have to make some tough choices. We have to limit it to about 85 units. This year we had 115 entries or applicants.
Wow.
And it was a good problem to have because we really narrowed it down to what we thought was the best of the best. We have some legacy units, and this year we have 24 marching bands, which I think is a record.
Wow.
So it's a good problem to have. A lot of people want to get in the Christmas parade, and that means that the cream is going to rise to the top, and people are going to see a good show on Tuesday, November 21st.
What is your process? How do you keep the ideas coming? You talked about your grandfather starting it. The parade looked a certain way. Your dad brings in ideas, and it starts to get televised. And now you guys are looking for different ideas. Where do you draw your inspiration from? How do you ideas coming in the parade form?
Boy, it's easier than you might think it is to some extent. I mean, really, this year was a no-brainer. With it being the Hyde family's and Hyde Music's 75th anniversary of doing business in downtown Appleton, it was a no-brainer to make the theme this year the music and magic of Christmas. And so we chose them to be our honorary parade marshals. So Todd and Dee Dee Hyde and their 3 children will be the focal point at the beginning of the parade, and we'll be able to highlight a fantastic generational business from downtown Appleton that's done so much for our community. And so that made it easy. And last year we chose Mary Beth Nienhaus to be our grand parade marshal, and that was a no-brainer. I mean, it probably overdue to some extent, even with the Hydes, but I'm glad that we waited for the Hydes with it being their 75th. So we tried then those themes we try to come up with to maybe morph around something that's going on already that's topical. Last year, if I'm not mistaken, our theme was peace on earth, which we surely needed, and we need it every year, of course. But with the division that is the divisiveness that we live in, it was beautiful to see how the units that made it into the parade made it their own and really put their heart into it. And even the people, as we walk through the parade, to be able to see, you could just see it and feel it in the atmosphere, and that makes it all worth it right there. And that it's making a difference. Creating traditions, that's something that's huge. I think with all 3 parades is the traditions that go around it of getting down there at 5 o'clock in the morning and putting your chairs out or whatever. I can remember as a kid going to the Christmas parade. My great grandparents lived on Walnut Street, which is their house is torn down now, but it was right in front of the current courthouse. And we would all of us kids or grandkids would meet there with our parents, and we'd bundle up, and you could, be like Ralphie on the Christmas Story, barely walk. We didn't have foot and hand warmers. You guys know that back in those days. You had 4 different pairs of gloves on, hoping you'd stay warm. But then we'd walk down and we'd stand in front of the Lullaby Shop, which is now the bar, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah. Yeah. We'd stand in front of that and watch the parade and freeze and walk back, and you could barely feel the toes, the tips of your toes, and have some hot chocolate afterwards. I mean, there's all traditions. So those are things that are fantastic memories that I know my kids probably have going to the parade as young ones, and oodles and oodles of other families do too. And it's beautiful. Flag Day is no different. The traditions that are along Flag Day with Wisconsin and College Avenue spectators, but even on State Street, I mean, all those homes, those people for years have been having family reunions and other get-togethers just because the Flag Day parade's coming by, and it's fantastic. So it's very heartwarming to be able to be a part of 3 events like this that bring the community together for such great purposes.
Oh, absolutely. I love that stretch of State Street on the Flag Day parade. It's just, I don't know. It's my favorite part of it, really. And I've watched it from all different vantage points. And I think in the end, I would take that spot.
Yeah. Well, as a participant, I'll tell you, I march with the Scarlet Guard, American Legion Color Guard, and that's our favorite spot as well because of the shade.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. You talk about tradition, and I remember the Memorial Day parade. My dad fought World War II, and that was a special parade for him. I remember growing up going to that every year, and that was what a way on Monday morning, grab donuts, I'm sure, after, and it made for a great day.
Sure does. Yeah, the Memorial Day parade, there's a whole different meaning behind. I mean, that's all about those men and women that we lost that served in our military, and gave up so much for. And as far as I'm concerned, that day also is for those guys like your dad that served in World War II that had to come back with those terrors and live with that and raise a family and be a good husband and fight those demons that they still had to live with afterwards. It's just, it's that Memorial Day parade is probably my favorite, and many people's for those same reasons. I had an old neighbor that used to say that the Memorial Day parade, the Flag Day and Christmas, fine, but Memorial Day was his favorite because he said it was just so kind of almost Norman Rockwell like. The way that it was smaller, the bands that were just the high school bands, the Legion, the VFW, all those veteran organizations being so proud to honor and remember those that they left behind, and it's just great. And
I especially love it. I live on Pacific Street, and it goes right by my house, so I kind of like that.
Yeah, you touched on one thing, and I think this comes back to what you said earlier. If Appleton's doing something right. When you go to these parades, you forget about other things, and it's just an experience. And I remember going as a kid, remember bringing my kids, and hopefully at some point bring grandkids down to it, because it is a way to just take a couple hours for one parade, or an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it turns out to be, to just forget about what's going on and enjoy what's going on in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think every parade has its own feel and its own fans, so to speak. I think there's some people that we see at all 3 parades, but Memorial Day has its own route. It starts on College Avenue, but then it winds its way over to Riverside Cemetery.
Yeah,
and we see a lot of the same faces there. You have narrow streets, you've got some tight turns, so you do get to almost touch the people on the side of the street. You almost get we don't shake hands or anything like that. That's one of our parade policies, but we come pretty close, and you see a lot of the same families from year to year. And the same thing for Flag Day too. People make a day of it. They start pre-gaming about noon or so for the main event when it starts at 2:00, and we come by and we see a lot of family reunions, a lot of red, white, and blue adorning the porches and the front yards. And then Christmas is actually the shortest route. It's obviously our only nighttime parade, but everybody's squeezed in there nice and tight for a 90-minute show. And it ends with our 2 special guests from the North Pole. And we get to walk through the parades, the end of every parade. But at that one, we're right behind the guests of honor, right? So we see the looks on the kids' faces and screaming out, Santa, Mrs. Claus. And there's just nothing that can replicate that. That's really my favorite part of the year. And that really kind of kicks off the holiday season for me. I think we're kind of busy in the planning mode, and I don't want to say we lose touch of our purpose, but like we really want to make sure that the show goes off well and that all the pieces are in place. But it's really not until that moment where I'm like, oh yeah, this is a Christmas parade and this is what it's all about. And it's really about those little kids that are on the curb waiting for Santa.
What is your planning process like? Like, what does your calendar look like when you the lead up for you guys? And I guess maybe if you could speak a little bit to what is your committee? What's the size of it? What, I guess, how do you guys do it? I kind of know it from a Red Smith standpoint, how we do things, but you're on a very much larger scale than the banquet ever was.
Well, it feels like it's always parade season lately. We, if you're going to go from the beginning of the year, we basically start talking about Flag Day in January. We pick a theme. We start reaching out. We honor a different branch of the military every year. So Eric will start reaching out, trying to find an honorary parade marshal, because the U.S. flag is always the official parade marshal. And, we have to get our press releases out. We have to reach out to some of those legacy units. We have to get our application out online. And then there is a little bit of sit and wait as the applications come in. And somewhere around late March, early April, things really pick up again, because then we have to go through the applications. Those that are approved, we put the lineup together. And the Flag Day Parade, because of its size and really just kind of a nature of the beast, that there are always a lot more moving pieces with that parade. So I'm sure Eric would agree, but I always feel like we're really working hard right up until 2:00 on the second Saturday in June, which is when the parade begins, and then a whole other job begins, because we're trying to find drivers, we're trying to find people to carry banners, we're trying to put groups together, whether it's somebody who's going to sponsor a band, and that band or that float or that trailer. So that one requires a lot of hours of our time. Our committee is probably about 10 to 12 people, and everybody's kind of got their own role and their own responsibility, but we all kind of share in the work. Flag Day, and actually, we're planning Memorial Day at the same time too. So we've got kind of a weird situation in Appleton where we've almost got back-to-back parades. Obviously, the last Monday in May, and then about 2 weeks later, we're celebrating Flag Day. And there is a different feel for each parade, so it does feel like very different events. But we're trying to do both at the same time, not to mention the Memorial Day ceremony too. Mm-hmm. And then we take about 6 weeks off, and then come back at it in late August, and we start talking about Christmas, which seems like a weird time to do that because it's about 85 degrees outside. But kind of the same process then too. We try to come up with a theme. We've kind of got a short list of themes that we can come back to if we need to. This one kind of came up organically, like Eric said. We have a running list of potential parade marshals for the Christmas parade. The Hyde family's been on it for a long time. And with it being the 75th anniversary of Hyde Music, we just felt that was the perfect time to honor them. And then we came up with a theme that would tie in. Same thing then, we're putting the application out. There's a little bit of sit and wait as the applications come in. And like I said, that's a much tougher process for us, having to go through and decide who's in and who's out. Some of those decisions are pretty simple, but a lot of them, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of debate. But ultimately, we feel like we have the best lineup that we could have possibly had. So we'll go, obviously, November 21st is the parade. We'll take maybe a week to just kind of decompress and kind of talk about what went well, what we need to work on next year. And then we'll take about a month off or so before we do it all over again.
When you speak of the lineup and specifically the bands, I mean, there's some fantastic high school bands out there. Some are clearly better than others. How are you determining? Well, how are you determining what band makes it, what band doesn't? I can only imagine every band wants to at least be in the Christmas parade, if not all three of them.
I don't think we turned away one band for Christmas. It is the most sought after because it's televised live, and we have bands coming from Michigan and Peshtigo, Bondwell, Wyawega, So they're coming a distance. We make sure we try to also take into consideration, the distance they're coming from, and it's a Tuesday evening, it's a school night. So we try to put them towards the beginning of the parade if they're a further distance away, so that they have time to get home and a reasonable time for those kids to still get their homework done. But Christmas, we haven't had to say no to a band yet. Gosh, I hope we don't ever get to that problem, because the more music, I mean, people love the music. Flag Day, it's tougher to get Flag Day parade. It's tough to get bands because we get those our high school city bands, but it's hard to get other communities' bands to come, because once school's out, it's hard for those teachers to keep those kids engaged. So we have gotten a little more creative with maybe booking or hiring some entertainment type bands, rock bands, or like we've had Unity, the reggae band, and who else?
The Positions we had last year.
Yeah, really good entertainment type bands, and putting them on a float, teaming them up with some other organization maybe, and that's been quite a hit. So I only see that getting more. Obviously, we know we're not going to get more marching bands, so doing some more floats with these performing bands is really awesome. And one of them we had was Tom Schneider's polka band, party band, which who doesn't like a good polka coming by on a parade? I mean, it's just great. It's happy music. So things have transformed. I mean, from when Bud Otis ran the parade to when Greg took the baton, and things have changed a lot. And we've had to get innovative. The Flag Day parade now. We've turned it into more of a Flag Day celebration, or a day long type of thing, like Corey said, starting it at noon. But actually this past year, or this year, I should say, not this past year, but in June of this year, ADI, Appleton Downtown Incorporated, finally said, let's do a farm market. We've been asking them to do it for years, and we're so happy that this year they did. So they did a farm market. It got people downtown early. We then had a couple of pre-parade performances. The 484th Army Band performed, and the 1st Brigade Civil War era band performed before the parade. So that gets people down there earlier and get some shopping and spending money downtown and creating new traditions. I mean, those kinds of things weren't happening before, but we're creating new traditions for families.
No, absolutely. I love that. I remember, was it in the 80s? You talk about the way things transition. Remember the old drum and bugle corps? I felt like and didn't they perform like that evening? I felt like it maybe in Menasha or something. I felt like they always had performances.
Yep.
Yeah, they did. They did for years. The Americanos had a really well organized. They were just top notch with organizing an evening competition. You're right. And they would say, if you want to compete to these drum and bugle corps around the country, you want to compete in our competition, you also have to march the parade. And so that was great. So they really wanted to be a part of that competition. It was, major kudos for them to be a part of it. And so then they'd march the parade. So we'd lucked out with the parade those many years that those drum and bugle corps were quite prominent in all those communities. We'd have 10, 15 drum and bugle corps. It was great. And then at first, Joe, that competition used to be at the Bonta Bowl at Lawrence University. And then they transitioned it out to Calder Stadium. So it was awesome.
What I remember, I grew up not too far from there, over kind of near St. Pius, and I remember they must have had a little downtime during the day. So I remember maybe at Fox Valley Lutheran at the time and St. Pius, wherever there was large green space, they'd kind of hang out, they'd practice a little bit and just chill, so to speak, I guess. And I always got to get that was a fun day. There was nothing like the Flag Day parade. Then you'd walk down to Wisconsin Avenue, go out to Calder at night. It was a whole entire day. That was a lot of fun.
For sure. Well, that was a whole different level of organization too. I mean, they had to work hard to find places for those bands to stay overnight. They would be in the school gymnasiums or the church gymnasiums or whatever, and staying overnight, and then finding food for them and all that kind of stuff. It was a lot of logistics that the parade committee worked on, as well as along with the Americanos, to make it work, to be able to get them to keep on coming back year after year.
Right.
So I was just curious. You mentioned ADI. You've probably come up with some incredible partnerships throughout the years of doing these parades. What are some of those memorable partnerships, and maybe some that have been continuing and long lasting?
Well, definitely. I mean, we are a city event, but we do have to work with several different departments within the city. The Appleton Police Department works with us hand in hand. Obviously, security is our most important concern going into any of these events, and the planning that we do like pales in comparison to what the police department has to put together, especially for an event like Christmas. And I've told people the last few years as security has become a bigger concern among spectators that there'll be more security than you'll ever know because you'll never see them. I mean, they're all over, but they're kind of hidden in plain sight. They also have added hard barricades. A lot of those are Department of Public Works vehicles, snow plows, big trucks, and whatever, just to give people a sense of safety. And it does protect the route from any kind of unforeseen danger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. WFRV has been a great partner. Really televising the Christmas parade has brought it to a new level. It's brought a lot more attention to it. And it's really kind of a labor of love for WFRV as well. Not only do they do the Christmas parade, which again, like brings them high ratings and, it does make money for them, but they also do the Flag Day parade as well. And we've gotten to know the WFRV family pretty well over the last 30 years. It's pretty much the same group that we've worked with. WHBY has been a great partner along with Pierce for the Flag Day parade.
Y100.
They head out, and Y100 as well. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people that we can count on and rely on, but then every year we're looking for new partnerships as well. So we brought in some different parade partners, especially with the Flag Day parade. And then the Christmas parade, kind of self-contained, because like we said, it's, we're actually cutting from the applications. We're turning people away from the parade, which is a good problem to have. But we've also got everything down to that 90-minute window, and everything's pretty tight that we feel pretty good about where we are.
Obviously, you've done it for so many years, but I wanted to get back just a little bit to the logistics of the parade and specifically the staging. How the heck does that work, and how do you plan for staging it and not have any gaps?
That guy right there, he's got a vision. He figures out how to put that puzzle together, and it really is a puzzle. I mean, you get those. Let's say the Flag Day parade is the hardest one. I mean, you got 110 units, and you've part of the application process. We ask the units to tell us how long their what they're going to have in the parade is going to be, whether it's the band, how many members are in the band, 125 or 200. If you're going to have a float, is it a semi-trailer or is it just a snowmobile trailer? Then you got to make sure that they all fit on Morrison Street, or do we have to go off on Randall Street and so on? And so Corey's really he's got that kind of a science down to a science, and I'm sure it's all up here. But he does a heck of a job with that. And Christmas parade is a little tricky too with being on State Street. A number of years ago, we always used to line up the stage all the units on State Street to the north of College. But that interfered with some of the businesses there, like Flanagan's and stuff like that. That's a busy week for them leading into Thanksgiving. And so now, a number of years ago, probably in the late 90s, if I'm not mistaken, it might have been that Greg Otis said, hey, we talked to Pat Flanagan, and we got to move this over the other side. And so now we're on the south side of State Street, or south of College. But that too, then you've got St. Mary's Church there. If they have a late afternoon mass or something, or there's a school across the street and daycare, you got to be able to let those people in and out to get their kids. And it's a lot of moving parts, and it's part of the puzzle.
I can only imagine.
Well, for Christmas, for example, Eric and I met when the applications come in, and we went in and kind of made a first draft of the cuts. We met on a Tuesday. We went through a first draft of the cuts, and then we came back the following Tuesday and went over it with a subcommittee, basically. And then we, that weekend, like 4 days later, I was walking through State Street on a Sunday morning, and you're counting how many feet it takes for each unit, because they tell us, hey, we need 50 feet or 75 feet. Some say we need like a city block. I'm like, well, you're not going to get a city block, so you're going to get 50 feet. You're going to have to squeeze your band into there. But Harvey Sampson, like I said, he really is one of like the forefathers of the parades in Appleton, I would say. He just passed away a couple of years ago. He was the assistant chairman when my dad had this position. And he's the one that walked me through the State Street staging area. He walked me through Morrison Street for Flag Day. And he gave me some pointers, some tips on how to figure out who was going to go where. It would be nice if you could just do it in numerical order and everybody just lines up from 1 to 85 or 1 to 110. But you've got units, especially in Flag Day, we've got some long tractor trailers. We've got the 495th who come in with their Army trucks and equipment, and like you can't fit those over by Erb Park. So there is some kind of directing and so forth. Eric saved me at Flag Day Parade because we had the city band who was now on a trailer off to the side at number 5. I was like, okay, we're going to have 1 through 4 come in. I'm going to pull at number 5, and then we'll have 6 through whatever. I just totally spaced it and forgot about the city band. And Eric never saw Eric run so fast. He came running up to me. He's like, hey, isn't the city band supposed to go? I'm like, oh, and I said a word I won't say in your podcast. We got him in, and the cameras for WFRV were only about a block or 2 down the road. And Eric managed to get him in time. So if you watch it on TV, you had no idea I almost screwed up that part of the parade. But there's a lot of logistics, a lot of planning, a lot of communication. And my sister, Megan Warner, she works for ADI. We've had a long partnership with ADI, kind of on the clerical end of it and the communication, the organization for about 25 years now. She's the one that's reaching out to individual units and saying, hey, I need to know how many people you're bringing. She just communicated with me today about contacting the school bands, the high school bands. She's got to find out how many buses they're going to have, any equipment trucks, and how many marchers. Because the buses, when those come into the staging area, that's a whole ordeal too. We've got Mike Rietfeld, who's in charge of that now. He's actually the former principal at Kimberly High School, and he's taken over that last couple of years, and he's really just done an outstanding job. He's made it his. He works with John Ostermeyer from the Appleton Police Department, and they've like, you know what, this system worked 25 years ago, but we have to look at, especially if you've been downtown lately, there's a lot of new traffic patterns, right? Because streets that were one way are no longer one way. So they've come in and they've updated it for the 21st century, so to speak. And we really feel like we have a good system that night. People come in, they feel like they know where they're supposed to go. They know what the deal is. They know what the expectations are. We still have to remind some people of the rules once in a while, like not to go out and shake hands, not to bring your dogs over to the side. It's nice to pet them, but we don't allow that for insurance reasons. And throwing candy from the floats, too. That's probably what we hear about the most. That's been a long-standing rule in Appleton. We don't want kids running into the street in the middle of a parade. And every year there's somebody we find out who does it, either because they didn't read the instructions or they just flat out ignored it. And they're not welcome back. We're pretty stringent about that. That's the high standards that we have for our parades. And we say, listen, these are the rules. We have our reasons for them. We can share them with people. We do all the time, but it really comes down to safety, right?
Oh, for sure. The other thing off of that too is politicking, campaigning. We don't allow it. We in Flag Day, we keep all the dignitaries at the beginning of the parade. We kind of corral them and say, okay, we're going to line you up as federal, state, and local, or county and local. And that's it. And you get this, and this, and that's it. This is not. People aren't coming to be campaigned and whatnot. They're here to celebrate the flag. They're here to honor the fallen. Or in the Christmas parade, we don't allow any dignitaries. The mayor isn't. We don't even have a spot for the mayor. He actually rides with the fire department. It's just not what it's for. And that we're really strict about that. And so there's reasons for it, and it I think sets the bar. But going back to Christmas with the buses, I mean, think about that. We have 24 bands coming from all over Wisconsin, Michigan, and let's say all of them come with three or four buses. That's a lot. That's a lot of congestion, and you only have that span on State Street from College to, what is it, Fifth or Sixth Street is about as far as we go.
Yeah.
And where are you going to put all those? So we have a certain route that they're told they have to come in and they have to go out. Then they go to City Park and stage around there to wait for their band to march through, and then hop them on and get a heck out of the city. So that then by the time they're out of the area, the parade's ending, and then the people watching the parade can get out of there with less congestion too. So there's a rhyme or reason to everything in a system that just works. So yeah, it's great. It's good to be a part of.
Do the units know where to go in the end? Then you say they stage around City Park. So do they know to go to the south end of City Park to find their bus?
Yeah, we have Dennis Wepfer. His wife, Mary Ann, worked at ADI for many years, was the marketing director, but Dennis has been a longtime volunteer, and we actually stage him at the end of the parade route, and he directs marching units one way and vehicular or traveling units or floats or whatever vehicle units go straight on College, and then they have to find their way home after that. But that really works out well. It keeps those walking units safe. And gets those vehicular units the heck out of Dodge, so that we can keep the parade moving without these big gaps. That's probably our biggest nemesis with a parade is the gaps.
Right.
It's hard to keep that. It's hard to not have those.
Yeah, I would imagine.
When we were at the parade, we always yell out when there was a gap, "Otis, gap!" just for the hell of it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, that was a funny joke, Tosh. So gaps are going to happen. Flag Day Parade, we had a train come through. We had a car stall. We had a protester. That was all just last year. And John Ostmeyer, who's our liaison to the APD, he didn't tell me that until it was over because I probably would have lost it. Yeah. Christmas Parade, like I said, because it's televised, everything is run a lot more tightly up to the cameras. But if you are east of the cameras on College Avenue, you probably will see a few more gaps because they do stop the parade for commercial breaks, sometimes up to 60 seconds. So that will create a little bit of space at the end of the parade. But our bands are so good, and the band directors are well trained that they get their kids trained to catch up and kind of close those gaps when they need to.
Oh, I was just going to mention Carl Kaufman. He's one of our probably been a part of the committee for 30 years. But his dad before him, his dad was an alderman, passed away a few years ago. But Carl, we position right by the TV cameras, and they kind of communicate between one another. And he helps stop the parade when it's needed for a commercial break and for Flag Day and Christmas, for that matter.
Corey, is your dad still? I know he's kind of throttled back a little bit, but
he's alive.
Yeah. Well, that I knew, but is he alive in the parade world at all? Does he still dabble?
He dabbles, yeah. That's a good way of putting it. So I could tell this story because this is a podcast, and there's no way that he's going to be able to figure out how to listen to it. So, but when I took over the reins in 2019, obviously, I've been learning from him my whole life. I've been watching him. I watched my grandfather before that, but you don't really learn it until you do it. So obviously there were some hiccups along the way, and he's always been there for a sounding board or for me to ask questions or the history of things. But the Evening Lions invited me to come and talk about the parades. And at that point, I had never actually put on a parade as the chairperson of the committee. So I asked my dad if he would come with me, and I said it'd be kind of a nice passing of the torch moment. And he's always down for something like that. So we went over to the Lions meeting, and it was a small group, and we were sitting around and we were just kind of shooting the breeze. And my dad started to tell a story about when he took over from his dad, my grandfather. And one of the big things was my grandfather said the committee, no matter what the temperature was, if it was 10 below, or if it was 90 degrees, you had to wear black pants. You had to wear black slacks. And when my dad took over, he's like, that rule's gone. If it's 90 degrees at Flag Day, you guys can wear shorts. So the committee marched through at the end of the parade. Here they are, black shorts, untanned legs. And my grandfather had found a spot on State Street to watch the parade. And as the committee came by, he actually turned his back on the committee. He was so upset that they had broken that rule. So my dad was talking just about how he had to talk to his dad and say, hey, in not so many words, there's a new sheriff in town, and I'm going to do things my way, and things are going to change, and you're just going to have to accept that, and you're just going to have to sit quiet and let me do my thing. And, I'm sitting there nodding like, whoa, this is a good story. This is something that we all can learn from. And over the last 5 years or so, there's not a parade that goes by where my dad doesn't tell me something he would have done differently or why did you do that? And we've had an interesting 5 years here, Eric and I, because when my dad retired, Harvey Sampson, he was on the committee another couple of years. Unfortunately, he contracted cancer and he passed away. But Eric and I have kind of come up together, so to speak. And we had our first year was 2019. Well, 2020 was our second year, and we were deep in the throes of planning Memorial Day and Flag Day when COVID came, and we didn't know for probably a month or a month and a half if we were going to have a parade. It took that long to figure out what was even going on, and then we tried to come up with some type of alternate event. We couldn't really do that. We did have a virtual Memorial Day ceremony that WFRV produced free of charge, basically public service.
Yeah.
It turned out really well, I thought. Then the Christmas parade, we were still in the throes of COVID, and we weren't able to put on our normal parade. So we had to get creative. And we did look to Nina Menasha, who has had Santa visit that area and do weekly tour, or actually, I think it's 8 or 9 days in a row where Santa will do a different part of that area. So we managed to talk Santa and Mrs. Claus into coming to Appleton for 5 consecutive Tuesdays leading up almost right to Christmas. And Eric drove a big box truck. I drove my wife's Subaru with antlers on it and playing Christmas music. And then here was Santa and Mrs. Claus on a smaller float that was made to navigate the roads of Appleton. And when I look back at the time, like we just did what we had to do. We had to get Santa in front of people. We had to give them some joy. People stood in their front yards, and we tried to hit as many neighborhoods as we could. We had help from the GIS department downtown in the city of Appleton. They made maps for us. They developed the routes. And when I look back at it now, like I'm really proud of the work we did. I was proud at the time, but now I look back and I'm like, it was really a bad situation. We made the best of it. And we brought as much Christmas joy and holiday spirit as we could to the city of Appleton. And it seems like every parade, it's been something new and something different that we've had to overcome. And I was going to say this before when Eric was talking about our elected officials, which sometimes can present challenges, especially in the summer and especially when it's an election year. But a couple of years ago, I've never been prouder of them because Waukesha had its parade tragedy on a Sunday night. And it was 48 hours before our parade was scheduled to go. So we didn't know if we were going to be able to have a parade. And this time, everything was ready. We were set to go. And this tragedy unfolded in Waukesha. We're watching in real time. Eric and I and Megan, we're all texting back and forth, and we don't know what's going on. I called the mayor the next day. And by noon, we had a plan. We're going to go forward. Appleton Police Department was going to increase the security to a level that we've kept ever since then. But the first unit, if you could remember, was basically all of the elected officials in the Valley, from the Common Council to state reps, state senator to the mayor, obviously. And they all locked arms. They had candles, and they carried a banner with the Waukesha Strong logo, which had been created like within 24 hours of that event. And it was a really silent night. And I don't mean to, just throw a pun out there, but it really was powerful, and it was very emotional. I think a lot of people got choked up. I know I did when I saw them walk by, and it really set the tone for the parade that we were going to honor the victims in the Waukesha tragedy, but we were going to go forward with our parade, and we were going to try and bring some normalcy back to the area. We caught a little bit of flack when we did that. There were some people saying, how could you do that? But I can tell you that none of the people that criticized us were from Waukesha, because everybody from Waukesha was like, thank you for doing that. We really appreciate it. And they liked that we paid tribute. And like a coda for this story is we had this banner, and we didn't know what to do with it after the parade. It probably sat in the corner of my sister's office for a few months. And finally, they were rearranging so that she had to do something with it. So we called down to Waukesha and we said, hey, we have this banner. We carried it in the parade. And, oh, yeah, we remember that. And we said, would you like to have it? Because they actually put a museum exhibit together to honor the memory of that night, to memorialize it. and our banner is part of that exhibit. And to me, that's like just such an honor for us that it was a horrible thing that happened down there, but we feel good that we're able to let them know that we care, that 90 miles away, that we were thinking about them.
I remember that night. I remember being at the parade that night. That definitely was a powerful moment.
As you think throughout the years, you guys have both been involved. You touched on something I was going to talk about was COVID, but let's touch on something else. What are some really funny moments that stand out in your mind from all of these parades?
I got one. My favorite Greg Otis story is when Greg Otis, he tells us every year whenever I see him, when it's coming around Christmas time. And it was earlier in the years of the Christmas parade, and he was with Harvey Sampson and Nick Belinkie, right? And
I think so.
And so Greg, Nick Belinkie, Harvey Sampson, and they were at the House of Lee downtown Appleton, right?
There's a great old name.
Having a couple of cocktails, doing some planning for the parade, and Greg starts laughing, and they're like, "What the heck's your problem?" It's like, just realize the irony here. I'm sitting with two Jews in a Japanese restaurant planning a Christmas parade.
Nick Belinkie, there's another great name.
The first one, actually. It was the first parade. And really, it's called the Downtown Appleton Christmas Parade because it was put together by a lot of downtown businesses. And it was a way to officially kick off the holiday season, but also the Christmas shopping season. Because at that time, we're talking 52, 53 years ago, that's where people did most of their shopping, right? So the mall changed that in the mid 80s. But before that, if you wanted to buy toys or shirts or pots and pans, whatever you wanted to get, you had to go down to downtown Appleton. So that was really the genesis of the event. And we've always tried to keep it central to downtown. So our parade marshals have some connection to College Avenue. Mary Beth Nienhaus, she obviously has helped everybody in this town, whether you were in the schools, her Habitat for Humanity homes, the pickleball courts would be the newest thing, but also the Marigold Mile. She's a huge contributor to that. And then the Hyde family, obviously, the first Hyde music was on College Avenue. So it is tradition's very important, but there is a funny story behind the genesis of the parade too. But it also shows how inclusive this event is, that we really do have everybody from every walk of life in our community involved in this event.
Was it always a night parade, the Christmas one?
I believe so, yeah.
That's a great idea.
This is the 52nd. Yeah, this is the 52nd. And I think that adds a lot to it because the lights really pop when you went after dark, obviously. So it really does sparkle. And we put in a lot of work in this parade. Our committee, the police department, WFRV, all of our parade partners. But I'm like consistently blown away by the ingenuity and the hard work of our participants, because they send us a description of what they're going to do. Sometimes they have a picture, but usually not. And then when they show up, we're seeing it for the first time a lot of times. And, it's just mind blowing, the creativity that goes into some of these units.
What was your first reaction to the hot air balloon one? I've loved that one for the last, I don't know how long they've been there, but it's fantastic.
I think it's about 15 or 16 years that they've been in. That one too, they told us what they were going to do and kind of described it. There were some concerns there about the wires that go over College Avenue. So if you notice, there is somebody with a long pole that will push up the wires to make sure that they're away from the flame. And you talked about funny stories. We learned this lesson the hard way probably about 10 years ago. But those flames are so bright that they actually turn the street lights off.
Yeah.
And one year there was a high school band, and the kids had their music adorned to their trumpets and their tubas and whatever. Well, they didn't have their music memorized. And when the lights went out, they couldn't see their music. They could see it once in a while when the flames went. They're not constantly blaring all the way down the avenue. So there were a few gaps in the music, and I won't say who it was, and Eric won't either because that person might be listening. But There were some choice words sent our way, like, how could you do that? Like, we had no idea that they were going to set off the streetlights and that you needed the streetlights. So,
And every good musician memorizes his music, right?
Oh yeah,
now they do.
especially high school kids.
Yeah.
That brings up a good point. I mean, think about the planning that a band teacher has to do. They're in charge of 50, 100, 150, 250 kids, and ordering the buses. And it's a tremendous responsibility for them too, not just the organizations building floats and that, but the camaraderie that happens between all of those units it's beautiful. Yeah. It's so awesome to see it all come together.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I'm curious, and I can say what my favorite, you may have talked about your favorite memory already when you talked about Waukesha and that moment, but I'm just thinking all the way back to being a kid, and the favorite memory was just the fact that we went down every year. And just, like I said earlier, to just forget about things. And you had some time to drink hot chocolate, sit with your parents, sit with your friends, and just enjoy it. But do you guys have a favorite memory you can think of?
I was always kind of helping with the parades, but I just remember one year, and I was probably like, I don't know, first or second grade. And my brother is only about a grade after me. But my grandfather drove the Bloodmobile for a long time. He was a trucker, and then he retired, and he did that in his spare time. And he asked us if we wanted to ride in the parade with him, ride in the Bloodmobile. So we sat in the front seat, and and that kind of blew my mind. Like, this is what you actually do going through the parade, and that, you're out there for an hour and a half watching it. But when you're in the parade, it doesn't take long to go from point A to point B. It's only a mile-long route. So it probably takes about 15, 20 minutes to traverse the entire things. But that was kind of a behind the curtain kind of thing for me. And also, my grandfather's a very important person in my life too. So that's just a memory I have as a grandson, being able to share that moment with him.
I've kind of found, organizing the Red Smith banquet a little bit, kind of, the same kind of family tradition. Just doing the thing, right, is just sort of always the memory, isn't it? It's just your life. It's just become a part of your life, and it's hard to imagine life without that thing in it.
For sure.
Joe, I don't know if you feel this way too, but I know when I was younger and I would kind of have to be coaxed into helping or bribed sometimes.
Voluntold.
And
right, there you go.
Voluntold. And the day would fly by, and then I made a lot of connections. Carl Kaufman and I used to work in the back wings of the Flag Day Parade all the time. It seemed like we were always in the back, and it's probably because we were the loudest and we weren't afraid to stand toe-to-toe with the band directors sometimes when they got a little bit stubborn. But as I get older, I really look forward to it every year, and it really is something that I'm very proud to be a part of, and I really cherish each and every parade, because you don't know how long you're going to be here, right? And then you start to think about the history behind the Red Smith and your family connections. And I think about, before every parade, I think about my grandfather, and my dad is still around, so I know I'm going to see him. And it does get a little emotional for a second, but then the work starts, right, and then you don't have time to think about it.
What is your routine, both of you guys, like right after the parade is done? Everything is. You've cleaned up. I mean, do you go? Do you have a meal? Do you take a drink? What do you guys do in the next 10 hours right after, or maybe just crash on the couch? I don't know.
We actually start about 2 hours before the. No, I'm just kidding. We have an undisclosed location where and actually it's not like any kind of top secret place, but the committee will meet, and we'll have chili provided for us. We'll have some cold beverages or some hot beverages, whatever trips your trigger, and we'll celebrate that night. Flag Day, we try to get together somewhere. That's a little bit tougher for some reason in the summer, but we do find time to get together and have a drink and really just kind of feel good about what we did before we go into planning the next one.
Yeah, that's important.
As you look to the future, and you guys are both, well into doing more planning and everything else, what are some things you look for in the future of the parades of Appleton?
More community engagement, I think, growing the audience. The audience has evolved a lot for the different parades and Flag Day. And, Flag Day is one that has changed an awful lot. And it's because everyone's got different things now that they're involved in. It was the Flag Day parade always before when we were kids, we're all around the same age as one another. It was that ritualistic thing every year. That's you didn't miss it. Now, families have got soccer tournaments or baseball tournaments or this or that. And then those things take priority, and family vacations and whatnot. And I'd love to see more of the community organizations grow their membership, so that they can be more prominent in the parades like they used to be. The Elks, the Lions, the American Legions, the VFWs. I mean, we all know that those organizations are fading, unfortunately, because people are drawn in so many different personal interests now in different things that I fear we don't have as generous of a community as we used to. I mean, people are generous. Don't get me wrong. I realize that, but people are generous in different ways. They aren't as much about giving their time to be a part of an organization like the Lions Clubs and the Elks and the Moose and all those different things. Those organizations do so much for our community. And they're getting to the point that they can't do as much, and they love the events like the parades because it's a good promotional opportunity for them subliminally. It's not supposed to be, but it subliminally is. They rally around the themes. But I hope that's really what I see grow a little bit is people getting back to supporting their community, giving time back, not just sitting on the couch and on the phone, and figuring out a way they can be a part of the common good.
No, I agree. This is a great community, but it takes guys like you to make that happen, right? I mean, parades are just a fabric of this life, and there's a lot of events that are like that take people to do. It's hard work to make this happen. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't just appear.
Yeah, I mean, the audience is changing, so we have to adapt and evolve as well. We've brought social media into it, and we're constantly trying to figure out how to incorporate that in the lead up to the events, but also during the events themselves. I feel like the Christmas parade, the Downtown Appleton Christmas Parade, we've got a good thing going here. A record number of applicants. And again, like having to cut it down to 85, that was hard. There were some hard decisions and some hard conversations, but that's a good problem to have for an event like ours. Memorial Day, I also feel like it's built on tradition. People want to see those bands and those units, and they want to walk to the cemetery for the ceremony. And it really is a different feel and a different tone for that event. And I really do think people look forward to that every year on Memorial Day. And Flag Day, we've got to figure out how to give people what they want. We have to figure out how to bring more music into it. And I think Eric's been really instrumental, no pun intended, the last few years of bringing in some bands that you probably wouldn't think of as parade bands. Like Unity is a reggae band. And when we brought them in, that was another situation where their amp blew like right before they were going to hit the cameras on WFRV, and some magical being came down and made it all come back to life again. And they had music and sound, and people love them. People really love that different kind of music. So whereas we have 24 marching bands in the Christmas parade, I think Flag Day is going to offer maybe an eclectic mix of different sounds and different sites. And it's not what it was when we were kids. Like nothing is the way it was when we were kids. We have to figure out a way to move forward and how to make sure that this event stays relevant in people's lives. We have our 75th Flag Day Parade coming up in 2 or 3 years here. So we really want that to be a hallmark event for the community. We want people to come out and we want to give them what they want. It's really all about providing a premier entertainment event for the community, and also honoring the flag or the holidays or those who didn't make it home in the military, depending on what the event is. So it's always a challenge, and that's part of the fun, I think, too, because it keeps us engaged. Like we can't just go on autopilot. We can't be complacent. We have to think about, all right, what worked last year? What do we need to bring in this year? Who can we talk to that can kind of give us some fresh ideas too? that's the part that I like too. It's the hardest part, but it's the part that I like.
Do you, when you're sitting at home on New Year's Day watching the Rose Bowl parade, I mean, can you watch parades can you enjoy parades, or are you always critiquing parades? How do you watch a parade?
Yes.
I actually went to the Marshfield Dairy Days parade a few years ago, and I hadn't been to a parade in a long time. My wife is from Marshfield, and she's, oh, you gotta see cow pie bingo, which that was a sight to see too as well. You can guess how that event worked, but I actually really enjoyed it because I don't get to watch a lot of parades. I'm always in the back, and I get to see them as they start. But it was good to see what got the crowd going and what each community kind of brought to make it their own and make it special. My wife and I went to a July 4th parade in Chattanooga, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Started at midnight.
Wow.
At midnight on the 4th, and that was a crazy parade. I mean, there was some stuff. I mean, you had the sheriff's cars from the Dukes of Hazzard, because they still watch that down there. I don't know. But it's really entertaining because it really gives you a slice of life from wherever you are. Like that, those are their traditions. That's their community. And there were some things where I thought, oh, that's a good idea. And there were some things like, we'll never do something like that in Appleton, Wisconsin. But I think Eric is probably the same way. Like, you're always watching it with a critical eye, and you're always thinking about, like, what can we steal from this event?
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
I just want to thank you guys for everything you do. I mean, your entire committee, you bring a ton of joy to the community with all three of the parades, and a sense of pride. I mean, people talk about Appleton. This is one of the things they talk about is the parades that you're responsible for putting on. So thank you guys for your time tonight, and thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, thank you. It's our pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you. Thank you guys for helping us tell the story.
Well, Tosh, it is Red Smith Banquet Throwback time. Another exciting episode of who are we going to pull out of the past and play for you guys. Well, this week we've got, he's the guy that, I know the Badgers are down this year, but he's the guy that made the Badgers the Badgers. He's the one that, because Camp Randall is renovated the way it is, it started with this man, Coach Barry Alvarez, Tosh.
Yeah, well, fantastic. A legend. I mean, absolutely, for Wisconsin sports, University of Wisconsin sports, he's played a huge role in everything. But he started out as a football coach for the Badgers and basically brought them back to the national scene.
Yeah, he turned that program around. He got them back to the Rose Bowl. He got them to be a powerhouse. Even the transition to Bielema, things like that. I mean, the team stayed relatively strong through that time. Of course, Barry stayed on as athletic director for a lot of years. So he's had his hand in Wisconsin, not only football, but the entire athletic program for a lot of years. So it was January 17th, 2006, when he appeared at the Red Smith Banquet with Gaylord Perry, Tosh, one of the greatest screwball pitchers, right? Knuckleball pitchers in baseball history. And
yeah.
I had forgotten this guy came to the banquet, but we had a couple of the greatest football coaches ever to live. Terry Bowden was the main speaker that year. So I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm not remembering 2000 this banquet too well, 2006. But Terry Bowden, Barry Alvarez, let's go.
This is a great show. You guys are going to love it. Anytime you get to talk Wisconsin football with Barry. So if you love this, check it out on the YouTube channel on Sunday. And continue to follow our socials and any place you get your podcast. Check it out.
Red Smith Sports Awards. Banquet Throwback.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport in Wisconsin and also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in honoring the 2006 Red Smith Award winner, Barry Alvarez.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Boomer. You can tell you got a good degree at the University of Wisconsin, can't you? I'm going to tell you something now. Terry, you should know better. An Auburn guy challenging a Wisconsin guy this year. You should know better than that. Come on. That's pretty good, Boomer. I like that. And it certainly is an honor to be here tonight. And certainly want to thank Red Smith Committee and for this prestigious award. And I haven't had an opportunity. This is the first time in, I guess now 17 years that I've had a chance to make the banquet. It's always right in the middle of recruiting or the close of recruiting season. So this is my first time, but I've heard so much about the banquet. And Fox River Valley has been a wonderful place for the university, particularly for me in recruiting. So many good players, and starting with a Boomer coming down. And, I'd love to have a safety look like him right now. And Mike Verstegen was mentioned earlier. Mike was on in our first recruiting class. And our first recruiting class really set the standard for our program. We had about 3 weeks to recruit and went out and really tried to, if you remember the statement I made when I took the job, for us to be successful, we have to build a wall around the state, not allow our good players to leave the state. If we could do that, we'll have a chance. Now, the heart and soul will be from the state. The hands and feet may come from someplace else, but well, Mike was one of the soulmates, you know what I mean? One of those big linemen that did so well for us, but they set the standard. And one of my all-time favorites was Tom Wiesner from Neenah. Wies was a consummate Badger, and we started passed away a couple years ago, but when I first came was at Las Vegas, known as the Big Dog, and loved Wisconsin, did so much for the program, and really represented what our football program was about. And of course, one of our key basketball players right now is from right here in Appleton. Ryan Butch is killing him. We're proud of him. But it's great to be a Badger right now. Last fall, as you know, we completed our $110 million renovation of Camp Randall Stadium, which, Camp Randall was a wonderful venue as it was. But right now, it takes a backseat to no one. And it makes me so proud that our fans have given us such tremendous support for men's football, men's basketball. We're sold out on a season ticket basis. I doubt whether there's anyone else in the country that can say that. Our women's basketball game this last Sunday had a tremendous turnout. We celebrated our 1 millionth fan to attend and support a Badger event this year during that game. As all of you know and has been mentioned, I'm excited about my new role as the leader of the athletic department. Be full-time athletic director now, and I really am excited about the fact that I'm turning it over to Brett Bielema. It's kind of interesting in the state now, a state that loves football, that we have 2 new head coaches coming in, and I was asked this question today, and what do you think, and what should the fans say about the 2 new head coaches? You know what? I think the one thing that the fans in this state should do, and we all should do, is support both head coaches, let them coach, and then evaluate it. But let's get behind these 2 coaches. I just want you to know that although we're enjoying a lot of success of late in our athletic department. We have a lot of work to do. My goal is to continue to improve our athletic department, not be satisfied. We can get a lot better. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we'll have a department that everyone in this state will be very proud of. Thank you again for this award. This has been awesome.
Well, Tosh, another fantastic throwback, Barry Alvarez. And don't forget, every Sunday morning on the Newsa-Cast YouTube page, you can catch a new throwback, the full version. We've got 20 of them up there already. So go to our YouTube page, subscribe, check out any of the throwbacks. Well, Tosh, what do you think? A little It's Forgotten and I'm Never Forgetting?
Sounds good. Yeah, we might as well do this. Yeah, finish it up.
Might as well, Tosh. So before I forget what I'm forgotten, how about you? What are you forgetting?
I'm going to go with one that is highly debatable in Congress and everywhere else, and it's daylight savings time. I can't stand it. 4:30 at night, the sun sets now. 5 o'clock, it's dark. I'd rather have it dark at nights than early in the morning for me.
Yeah.
I hate these long nights of darkness for sure.
So I have to ask, I thought it was going to, is this the last time we ever have to adjust our clocks? Are we finally done with that? Is this what it is? No, we have another cycle.
No, it passed one of the, I think it passed the House, or passed the Senate and didn't pass the House or something like that. So it's still up for debate on whether we're going to continue to do this or not, or what's going to happen. But yeah, maybe it'd be easier once it just stays the same and you know what's going on instead of the abrupt change. I think that's what gets people, the abrupt change of daylight savings time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, as a letter carrier, man, it sucks to have to start putting your headlamp on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to deliver mail.
So what have you forgotten, Joe?
Well, Tosh, maybe I didn't forget this, but I feel like everybody else is forgotten this. And, I know it's been a tough season for the Packers, bit of a rebuilding year. And a lot of people like to blame the officials, but God darn it, they're good. They really are. It blows my mind. I know people aren't always going to agree, but it is a forgotten art. And in particular, for whatever reason, I've caught Sean Hockeylee's couple of games in the last couple of weeks. And he's just like his dad. He's really, really good at explaining and being precise of exactly what they called. And I don't know what's slow motion. I mean, yes, there's been some missed calls and super slow motion, but there have been way more correct calls. And it amazes me. And I guess maybe more than anything, I just wanted to put a little bug in everybody's ear that, hey, it's forgotten that officiating, one, is really, really hard. And two, these guys are really, really good. Whether you believe it or not, they are. So it's been forgotten. And I just kind of want to remind everybody.
Yeah. Well, I challenge people who are at home complaining about the refs to watch it in real time and don't go back on a replay or a slow-mo and see if they pick it up.
Yeah, you would think that'd be pretty obvious, but it's not. I mean, right. You're not watching it in super slow-mo on the couch. I can tell you that.
No.
But, well, Tasha, I'm never forgetting. It's that time of year, and the meteorologists have reminded me, I'm never forgetting winter storms' names because they reminded me and they've sent me emails. And I know every winter storm now this year, and I hope we don't get all 10, but I don't know. I always get a kick out of it every year when I see them talking about it.
Yeah.
And as you and I try to create content, I understand why you need that as content. But any guess at what the first snowstorm is?
You know what? Being a science person, I probably should, but I can't remember. I don't remember what it is.
It's Avery, and it's an interesting way to spell Avery. There's no Y. It's Avree. So snowstorm Avery.
Oh,
I don't know. You have a prediction on when snowstorm Avery will be here? I think it has to be at least 4 inches of snow.
I'd like to say like March, but I know that's not going to happen. So who knows? That's a good. We're supposed to be in an El Nino year, which means a little less snow and warmer temps. So yeah, it's a great question. We'll have to see what happens.
I'm going to put my money on December 23rd. We'll see. We'll keep you updated.
We'll see.
Well, Tosh, what are you never forgetting?
Well, I spent the afternoon spinning honey out of our frames. So we got all of our honey spun out. We have some, the Moonflower Farms raw honey. My neighbor Paul. We do a little bit of hives. We have just, it's just a hobby. It's fun. I started bees back at the farm. Oh my gosh, I can't remember how long ago it was. And then my neighbor got an interest in it and brought hives to our backyard. Then he had somebody who was interested in it, and he has property up at High Cliff. And so there's some bees at High Cliff. Paul has some bees down by his mom's house in near East Troy, Delavan area. We get together and we heat up the garage, we heat up the honey and spin out honey. So I think it wasn't a great year as far as weather. We had droughts, but still 600-700 pounds of honey. Last year was over 1,000 pounds, and we sell it to some breweries. There's a meadery in Kaukauna now that has bought 5-gallon buckets of honey from us so they can make their mead. I sell some of the honey at school. A lot of the teachers buy it. And it's a fun hobby. It's one of those things where, saving the bees, saving the environment, making sure that we still have those pollinators. And it's always fun to get together and get the spinner going and cutting the wax off the hives and just getting everything set.
I would imagine that would, one, that's fantastic. You've been doing it for a while. I love that you do that. Dumb question though. When you cut that wax, is it good right off the bat? Do you lick your finger and it's good, or take a little chunk of that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's good right away. And we don't do anything to it. It's raw honey. All we do is strain it. So you get the chunks of wax out and maybe some parts of some bees and different things like that. But yeah, it's pure raw honey. A lot of people take it because they claim it helps with their allergies in the local area.
No kidding.
Yeah, so
yeah, you guys have gone a long way. I didn't realize you had 3 different locations for hives, 4 different locations. That's tremendous.
Yeah. It's not a lot of hives, but yeah, it's a few places. So good stuff.
Well, keep us updated, Tosh. And I don't know about you. That's a great way to end what I think has been a fantastic episode. I loved our conversation with Corey and Eric. And like we've said a million times, I love a parade. I love the Appleton Parades. They are so, so good. My family, your family. We've gotten together for them. We've gone to them as kids. Yeah. They've been a part of our life since day one. So thank you to those guys. And let's go and enjoy the parade on Tuesday night.
Yeah, here's just some good weather.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the weather. All 3 parades, it's all about the weather. Thank you for listening to another great episode of the Newsa-Cast. We'd really appreciate it if you'd hit up our social pages, subscribe, like, follow, and don't be afraid to engage. Head over to our YouTube channel to get exclusive content like the full interviews and speeches from past Red Smith banquets. Thanks for listening to the Newsa-Cast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and tell a friend. A huge thank you to Digstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig or find them on Spotify. Help us grow by subscribing wherever you get your pods or sharing the Newsa-Cast. Follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. One of the best ways to help us grow is to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Northeastern Wisconsin Sports Advancement is a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to raise money, provide support, and bring greater awareness for youth sports organizations in Northeast Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through 3 initiatives: the Every Kid Plays Grant, the Gives Back Initiative, and scholarships to student athletes.